Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, the Shark, and Stryker. Today is our 150th episode. Yes, folks, you've heard that right. We've crossed 150 episodes, and to celebrate, we're discussing the 1942 animated short, Superman, the Arctic Giant. So, let's get things started.
Look up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! Oh god, it's a giant kaiju!
That's a perfect way to sum up this short. Max and Dave Fleischer were a pair of animators best remembered for their work on Betty Boop or Popeye, but these guys were legit legends of animation. If you have not seen even their earlier work, like the Coco the Clown shorts or Bimbo's Initiation, you really are missing out because they are just so amazing. I mean, I am a huge Disney fan, but I love the Fleischers just as much as Disney, and I don't say that lightly. They are just so well done with all their animation and that in their works. And what's interesting about this one is how it was made. In the 1940s, DC and Paramount approached them to create a series of shorts based on the most popular character at the time, which of course was Superman. Dave Fleischer was actually unsure whether or not it would work out, and because they were still hurting from the box office failure of Mr. Bug Goes to Town, they asked for a pretty high budget for the shorts. And much to their shock, Paramount just shrugged their shoulders and were like, okay, you got it.
Huh.
Each one of the Fleischer Superman shorts ended up costing $50,000 per short, which, to put that in inflation, that is nearly $1 million per short in today's money.
Wow.
Yeah, so these shorts cost nearly as much as a Disney film of the time, but with a fraction of the runtime.
Wow.
Okay, impressed.
Very, very impressive. And, go ahead, Chuck.
And yeah, you can really see like the carrying animation. I'm not saying like Disney did not. Of course, Disney did a lot of love with their animation, but just look at the way the Fleischer characters look, the way they move, the way they are like the lightning and the shadows. It's like, yeah, I can easily see why an episode will cost this much.
Exactly. They wanted to put every single penny of it back on screen, and they did because these are some of the most beautiful animated shorts of all time. Like, you don't have to be a Superman fan or even a Fleischer fan. Even if you just love the art of animation, watching these are just a feast for the eyes. And what's also interesting about these shorts is it is so early on in the Superman mythos. There's no kryptonite, there's no Kent family, and there's no guys like Lex Luthor or any of the other supervillains. It's all just Superman fighting gangsters in these shorts, which is really interesting. And it also means that if you want to be technical about it, this Superman is the strongest one of them all.
Yeah, to put it in perspective, like how early into Superman's life was this? I think in some of the shorts, Superman didn't fly. He leaped high, which is what he did at the start of his comics before just flying like any other superhero.
The one we are talking about today is the Arctic Giant, one of the more well-known shorts. The short begins with Superman flying by as the famous "It's a bird, it's a plane" line is said. And here we also get the Superman fanfare, which really just sounds so good. It really just gets you in the mood to really enjoy these shorts.
I wanted to actually say a fun fact about that. That famous line actually came from a radio show that premiered 1 year earlier.
Interesting.
Yeah. Me and my mom did some research earlier. Just thought it was an interesting fact that I found out.
Huh, I didn't know that. That is very interesting. After the opening credits, we then get the second intro, which shows that Superman is faster than a speeding bullet and more powerful than the locomotive. And as Shark said, we actually get to see Superman leap a tall building in a single bound, which, yeah, does look a little bit silly. The narrator, who is voiced by Jackson Beck, who also voiced none other than Bluto. This is the later Popeye shorts Bluto, but still it is rather funny. He says that Superman is the amazing stranger from the planet Krypton and is the Man of Steel, as Superman triumphantly poses. And we're going to gush about this short a lot, so get ready for it. But the way the humans are drawn in this cartoon are so realistic that it's amazing. It's even more so when you actually realize they did not rotoscope these humans. Rotoscoping was an animation technique that was very popular before this. It was used in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and also it was used in the Fleischer's own Gulliver's Travels. But by 1942-43 was kind of seen as being old hat. So for them to look this good, it's mind-blowing. Go ahead, Meth.
Two things. First, this sort of became a Fleischer staple that they were insanely detailed. They were known throughout the industry to be able to make these just like almost photorealistic animations. And when you give them a budget like they did with Superman, you can see it in full display. The amount of detail and the fact that they were able to get them so human-like without actually rotoscoping or tracing over humans is nuts. Secondly, going back a little bit, since we were talking about the narrator being Bluto, I'm surprised that at no point the narrator ever brought up, talking about Superman, they asked, who's the most phenomenal, extraordinary fellow?
Nice, nice. It's even funnier because later on, famous studios would actually make a parody of the Superman shorts where Bluto dressed as Superman, which might have been an intentional little wink, which is really cute if they did.
So that's a fun one. That's a fun episode.
The narrator continues by saying that Superman disguised himself as Clark Kent, a mild-mannered newspaper reporter, and that he fights for truth and justice. Not the American way, because that would not be added until the World War II shorts, believe it or not. The short then truly begins with a map of Siberia as we see a red arrow slowly make its way up the map. Obviously, Indiana Jones is busy following that arrow. The narrator says that an archaeological dig looking for fossils managed to make an amazing discovery, a huge monster frozen in ice in the prehistoric era. And as the narrator says this, we pan over backgrounds that just look really amazing, especially for the time period. And there's one part in particular that is so intricate. It's amazing. It's when the camera pans into the cave, mouth of a cave, and it zooms into it, and we actually go inside of the cave. And the backgrounds in this, they look just as good as what Disney was doing. For example, the village in Pinocchio or the forest of Bambi, they really do look that good.
Keep in mind, like, Fleischer was like the studio that with Popeye Shores, they did the whole thing where they would sets, like realistic clay sets, and then draw the characters in with the camera. So you have like 2D animated characters walking in real life 3D environments. So yeah, when it came to backgrounds, Fleischer also did all they could to do it the best.
Oh, definitely, definitely. You could easily see why. The narrator then continues that they were able to remove the creature despite the sub-zero temperatures. Obviously, they should have had the narrator say, "Here is Sub-Zero, now Plane Zero." We then cut to a boat sailing across the ice as the narrator mentions how the monster was kept refrigerated as it was brought to, quote, this country, unquote. And I will say this is definitely referencing King Kong, which even in 1942 was a well-worn cultural reference.
What I really like about this boat scene is just how smooth the boat is moving through that ice. It is so fluid the way it's animated, and it just looks so good seeing it in motion and then seeing it in water moving as well, the transition, seeing it just washing through the water and the waves hitting up the side of the boat. Again, such beautiful, well-detailed animation. Fleischer was a master of his craft, and it's a shame that we don't talk about him more.
It really, really is. It's one of those things that it is such a shame because they were so well crafted. And again, we're going to be gushing a lot about this, so prepare your. We then cut to Metropolis to a museum of natural history, which is done up in a really cool Art Deco style that I think they really took a lot of inspiration for both Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series. Narrator says that the monster is being displayed to the public for the first time. We then see a nameplate saying that the Arctic giant is a Tyrannosaurus and other information before zooming up to the monster frozen in ice. And its design is really cool looking because rather than doing a realistic T-Rex like what Disney did in Fantasia with the Rite of Spring, here it looks cartoonish but still fearsome. It looks like a cross between a T-Rex and a dragon, especially because of its head shape and its fangs. I always kind of got that vibe from the Arctic giant.
Oh, hey, look, it's not Zilla.
Funny you mentioned that.
Oh, very funny, because this actually came out 13 years before Godzilla. So, did Toho take a lot of inspiration from this? It is likely, and we'll find out why in a little bit. We then cut to the Daily Planet as Perry White receives a phone call saying that the monster still might be alive in the ice. After hanging up, he calls Lois Lane, who is voiced by Joan Alexander, and tells her to go to the museum. As she gets ready, Clark, voiced by Bud Collyer, asks if she wants him to go with her. Lois then says that Clark would faint if he saw the monster because he scares easily. Clark then breaks the fourth wall, saying that she's right, but Superman hasn't fainted yet. And two things. Number one, Obviously, we needed Perry White zooming into frame, basically saying, "Oh, who are you talking to, Clark?" Yep. And number two is that the voice actor for Lois and Superman were actually the voice actor and actress who did it on the radio show.
Oh.
So for kids of the 1940s, this must have been mind-blowing because you hear them as Clark and Lois all the time. And then to actually see them move and actually be like what you imagine just listening to it on the radio, then you have a visual version of it. That must have blown their minds.
Yeah, I can just imagine the whole process. Like, you start reading comics and say, oh, I wonder how they sound. So, and then you hear how they sound. And then you wonder, oh, I wonder how they move. And there we go. They move that way. So, it would have been so amazing to be a kid seeing that on like a screen, or not just any big screen. Any screen will have been amazing to see.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We then cut to the refrigeration plant where Lois is being shown about how it all works. A worker ends up carelessly leaving an oil can on a platform, which falls off into the machinery. As the worker explains how any change in temperature can be dangerous, the oil can then falls into the works, causing electricity to shoot up into the entire machine. And even a simple shot like this of the machine going haywire and sparks flying out of it is so well done. We don't want to sound like broken records here, but if you have not seen these shorts, please track them down. They are public domain, so you can see them on pretty much any streaming service or even YouTube right now if you want, because, man, they're just really, really amazing how much detail went into this. Oh, go ahead, Math.
Yes, brilliant idea. Hey, we've got this really intricate machine that's holding together this giant lizard that could come back to life at any moment, so we need to make sure that nothing happens. By the way, I'm just going to leave an oil can here next to this vibrating arm rail. Nothing will go wrong.
Yep. That's how the rules of superhero worlds work.
Exactly. Shark, you were saying?
Yeah, well, you were saying of like, even the machinery, which, guys, animating machines, gears, and all of that must have been hard, and even they were able to master it, so everything they touch, they make a great animation with, either animals, nature, or even machines, so wow. Gushing for animation here is gonna be a recurring theme, guys.
Oh, easily. And this actually was inspiring for a lot of things too with machines, but again, more on that later. One of the workers then yells at the others about what happened, in a shot that, again, is really well done for a 2-second shot, just of this guy looking over the platform and shouting. And again, even simple stuff like this. Again, we're not just going to gush about this, we're going to do our usual thing, but we just want to reiterate just how special this really, really is. Lois then talks about what a story this will make as all the workers try to get back to work. Lois begins writing about what is happening before noticing droplets appear, and what's happening, of course, is that the ice is beginning to melt, with the thermometer going higher and higher with more and more ice defrosting. When the thermometer reaches the top and begins setting off an alarm, the workers all begin to panic. The guard then pushes everyone out of the museum except for Lois, who stays behind to see what's happening. The guard ends up calling the police to send in the riot squad as the Arctic giant wakes up, slowly moving its fingers and jaws as it does so. And yeah, the reason we are doing this short is because they never actually specify what gender the Arctic giant is.
That's true, if I remember correctly.
The Arctic giant then opens its eyes, revealing that it's fully awake as Lois goes into a phone booth, calling for the Daily Planet. The Arctic giant then roars as it begins smashing through the ceiling, before Lois gasps in shock. The Arctic giant then smashes through the museum and roars, and as we said earlier, this definitely predates Godzilla, and it really might have been an inspiration because it is so similar with a lot of its rampage to the original Gojira or Godzilla King of the Monsters if you see the US cut. It is so similar to that in a lot of ways that it really does make you wonder.
What really makes this very similar to Godzilla, from my perspective, is actually a combination of the body proportions and most particularly the spikes that are along the back. That, to me, is the indicator of someone may have been inspired by someone else.
What's also interesting, too, is because this predates Godzilla by such a wide margin, DC Comics could use the Arctic Giant anytime they want, and legally, they're in the clear, and yet they don't. You have like a giant kaiju you can use at any time, and yet you don't want to. But we'll get to more about DC's treatment of the Fleischer Superman in a little bit. But before that, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, modern WB not knowing what to do with their own shit? Gee, how interesting. Never heard that before.
Something that works really well with the Fleischer animation on this type of, well, kaiju is that he moves smooth, but he moves slow, and honestly, kinda works because he is massive. They are huge, and yeah, honestly, I think something in real life that will be that giant, it will not move fast. And you can tell, like, when he stomps on something, you can just feel the force on that step because, again, it's a bit slower, it's a bit more smooth, but that really makes it work. That really makes it feel the powerful, the heaviness.
Oh, easily. You could really see how they put so much effort in it. Police then begin shooting at the monster, but as is usual, the bullets only bounce off it as it merely glares at them before crushing a police car. The Arctic giant then grabs a hold of a building, smashes a small bridge, and then, in such a cool, awesome shot, the Arctic giant's tail flails back and forth and manages to smash 2 more buildings while it walks off.
Yep.
The citizens of Metropolis see this and begin to flee in terror as 2 cars crash into each other. A police officer, seeing this, calls the dispatch who tells all cars to go after it at once. We then cut to some teletype of the situation before it cuts to the Daily Planet. Clark tells Perry White that Lois is in trouble, as Perry tells him to get over there. Clark says that, of course, this is a job for Superman, which I always love that little detail. Whenever Clark says that, he actually changes his voice when he says Superman, basically saying that Superman has taken over.
For the kids in the audience, I'm going to explain a couple things here for you. Teletype was effectively texting with paper, and a radio is Spotify that your grandpa listened
Hmm.
Nice. What's interesting about this? Superman does not change in a phone booth in these shorts. He actually does it in one of the rooms of the Daily Planet, which makes me wonder if the janitor ever walked past and saw that, but regardless.
And remember, as long as no one sees Superman taking off his glasses, nobody will ever tell apart.
Of course. I mean, how could you? It's almost like saying that Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
Superman then leaves the room and flies out of the Daily Planet, leaping on top of buildings as he makes his way to the museum. And what's also part of the fun of this is the music. I love every time Superman lands in a building, they play a little dramatic sting of music.
Yeah.
As Superman then pushes past the rubble to enter the building, he then calls out for Lois. Lois calls back for Superman as he pushes a girder out of the way before he flies outside and places her down. Superman tells her to go back to the office where she'll be safe as Superman then flies off. Lois says that she's not missing the best story in years and follows him, which, for 1942, the way that they wrote Lois Lane is really progressive, even for today's standards.
Yep.
There's actually another short, The Bulleteers, where the Bulleteers are basically gangsters and they have this impenetrable bullet train, used before bullet trains actually happen. Lois just pulls out a machine gun and begins firing on them. She was no damsel in distress here.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely great. This was one of the greatest versions of her.
We then cut to the Arctic Giant making its way to a dam which overlooks several houses. Superman follows the Arctic Giant as it smashes through the dam, which ends up flooding the town. Superman then pushes a giant rock, which, I want to clarify, is not just a boulder, it's a rock. He puts it onto the hole in the dam, which saves all the people. But one thing I do want to point out, the town still got flooded pretty badly for like the 30 seconds the dam was broken. So, I mean, Superman aside from being worse, it didn't exactly save the day entirely there. We then cut to the Arctic Giant wading through the ocean as firemen shoot waters at it through their hoses, which, did you really think that was gonna work?
Well, yeah, coming back to the houses, well, again, these kind of episodes, as you mentioned, were expensive, so I think they would have really liked it to have like a scene of Superman saving the people, but they had to cut it or couldn't even add it into the script because, we have just so little time to make an episode and tell a story.
Yeah, I can definitely see why, because again, they had a time crunch with this, they had to get it out by a certain date. For the fact that that happened, the fact these look so good is really amazing. The Arctic Giant then easily manages to topple the fireman's boat, then smashes its way past the suspension bridge, breaking it in two. And we have gushed a lot about the animation in this short, and we are going to gush more about it. For my money, the swaying that the bridge does is the most impressive piece of animation in this. If you've ever seen the famous black and white footage of the suspension bridge swaying in the earthquake, it looks exactly like that. It is amazing. Just as one simple effect. It looks like they took the scene and they rotoscoped it, but they did it all by hand. That's what was amazing.
Still impressed with this animation, I swear.
Superman does better than what Mothman did because he picks up the broken piece of the bridge and holds it up as several cars goes through. The Arctic Giant then approaches a stadium as Superman then uses the wires from the suspension bridge to hold it up, then flings himself over towards it. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
It's kind of funny how part of the plot canvas is basically Superman has to clean this dinosaurs mess, and it's like Mr. Incredible said, I just cleaned this mess. Can we keep it clean for 10 minutes, please?
Man, if only that Superman was in Incredibles, that would have been a fun crossover. We then cut to people in the stadium as the monster approaches it, and what is unintentionally funny here, the people in the stadium are just all enjoying a baseball game. None of them notice the giant monster approaching towards them.
I mean, I guess either the game is that interesting, or these are like the Powerpuff Girls where they know Superman is going to show up and save the day.
That's a good reference right there. At least Superman won't have to teach them why you shouldn't put a toaster in a bathtub.
Because your toast will get soggy, of course.
Exactly. But what they also need, the people in the stadium, they need plankton there. Turn your attention towards the Arctic Giant in the southwest corner. Other way, imbeciles.
Yep, the Arctic Giant has the real monster Patrick Star on his back.
Perfect. Superman then uses a piece of the suspension bridge as a lasso to tie up the Arctic Giant's legs, causing it to come crashing to the ground. However, the Arctic Giant is still large enough to where it could hold its head towards the observation deck of the stadium. Lois arrives to take a picture of the monster, and for being such an intrepid reporter and a badass in general, Lois is not very smart here because she gets literally right next to its head, which of course leads to the Arctic Giant putting her in its mouth. Lois screams as Superman instantly knows it's her. He then flies into the Arctic Giant's mouth and manages to hold it open, grabbing Lois and saving her. He then tells her to stay right there as she says, "Yes, milord," in a playful way, then sincerely thanks him. And again, I love their relationship between Superman and Lois. It really is so sweet here.
First, great Lois scream. Maybe the best in the business. Second, I love how basically from the word go, because this is so early on, this is basically just pulling from the comic version. Lois has always been portrayed as snarky, sarcastic, intelligent, fearless. These are things you did not see from side characters in comics. Help, you rarely see them well done today, let alone so early on in their life. And I love that Lois has basically never changed. Every version of Lois is just the original version, just updated with the year rather than updating the personality or changing the character.
That is so great. Like you said, they really do such a fantastic job with her here. The Arctic Giant then opens us out threateningly to Superman as Lois gasps. And one thing that is also interesting, outside from maybe 2 moments at the beginning, we do not hear the Arctic Giant roar or make a lot of noise in this short. Whether or not that was because the Fleischers didn't really have any sound effect guys on hand or what, but it is kind of strange. This Superman proves why he's so OP, because he flies into the Arctic Giant, knocking it to the ground instantly and ties it up with a lamppost. We then cut to a newspaper headline from the Daily Planet, where it says all about how Superman managed to subdue the Arctic Giant and save the city. And I do love this fun little touch. You can actually see that the story is written by Lois as we pan down to a photo where the Arctic Giant is chained up in a small pit in the zoo. And if you want to find out why this was the 1940s, here's why. Because this thing is just covered in chains in a tiny pit and it's forced to eat hay. Which, yeah, definitely zoos have changed a lot since the 1940s, let's put it that way. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
You can even see the giant is clearly sad in the picture, I guess the idea was oh, look at him, he got defeated and now he's being humiliated, but yeah, it really feels different nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably the most poorly aged thing about this short, or the Fleischer shorts in general. Not so much the other shorts, which we'll get to in a bit, but before that, go ahead, Math.
Yeah, this was made today. This would be a zoo. This would be a circus.
We then cut to Clark Kent, reading the story as he says to Lois how courageous she was for getting the story. Lois is doing her makeup as she thanks Clark, but then asks where he was during all that. The short then ends with Clark saying, "Oh, me? I must have fainted," before he turns and winks to the audience, knowing what really happened. Even the ending fanfare is great, and man, even the Paramount logo with the colors at the end is just...
They knew what they were doing with this, and it was great.
that is actually it for the short, which is probably the fastest we've gotten through one of these things yet, because it's such a visual medium, shall we say. It's not really, it's hard to talk about the plot without actually seeing it, which thankfully it being public domain, it's very easy to see.
Yeah, this is a flavor for the eyes because honestly, the story is, oh, Superman has to stop a giant monster, but the way it's animated, the way the actions are there, the way it looks, the ideas they do when they destroy something and when the Superman fixes something, it really makes for a great watch, even if the story is as simple as it really is.
Oh, easily, easily. And what happened with Superman was that the Fleischers continued to make shorts until the short Terror of the Midway, in which Superman saves a circus from a giant rampaging gorilla. After this, their shorts were then made by Famous Studios, which their shorts are much like the Popeye shorts, which are nowhere near the same quality as what the Fleischers were doing. It is such a step down, seeing how creative the Fleischers were with their Popeye shorts to the Famous Studios ones, which is basically Popeye beats up Bluto in an art studio, Popeye beats up Bluto on a cruise ship, Popeye beats up Bluto dressed as Santa. It became the same thing over and over again when they were not remaking earlier shorts. As for Superman, what happened was, I'm not really blaming Famous Studio, it was the time, but what happened was World War II broke out and Superman became World War II propaganda. Now, it still had a lot of action in that and it does look good, but these wartime shorts, for the most part, really did not age well. Like, even some of the titles are really hard to even look at with it because it really is a shame what happened. Again, it's not their fault that wartime broke out, but the stereotypes used in the later Superman shorts, the ones Famous Studios made, I want to preface, the Fleischer shorts were not wartime shorts, the Famous Studio ones were. And yeah, it really is a shame what happened, you know?
Yeah, and not just Superman, even Popeye had some character designs, let's just say.
Sadly, things did not get better for Max and Dave Fleischer after that. They ended up having a really bad relationship with each other. Dave felt like he was not getting enough credit for work. Everybody knew the name Max Fleischer, but Dave put in literally just as much effort as Max did. Hell, he directed half the shorts, and yet he felt that he wasn't getting the credit. However, Max is upset with Dave because Dave cheated on his wife with his secretary, which Max, being an Orthodox Jew, really was not a fan of that.
Ooh.
Sad part is the two never spoke to each other after 1943. They never spoke to each other for the rest of their lives. They broke out from each other. I think I remember reading at one point, Dave Fleischer was asked about Max's funeral, and he said, "I have no brother," which, that's just depressing.
Yes.
That is, oh man.
Such a shame, such a shame. Dave continued to work in animation at Screen Gems, and he actually made the very famous drive-in short, Let's All Go to the Lobby. The one with the popcorn, the soda, and the candy bar talking about going to the lobby to getting, food to eat. Dave Fleischer directed that, and that was the last major short he did.
Oh man.
Max, meanwhile, went on to work for Jam Handy, where he did industrial training films. He did animation for that. He also did the first ever animated version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which, funny that, a Jewish guy did that, but regardless. Later on, he ended up becoming an animation teacher, and he actually ended up becoming very good friends with one of his former rivals, Walt Disney. Max and Walt became best friends, partially because Walt chose Max's son, who was the director Richard Fleischer, to direct 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which, if you haven't seen it, great movie. Go see it. Max was so touched by that he and Walt actually became good friends. Max would come to the studio all the time and meet up with animators and just talk and that. Max even appeared on an episode of Walt Disney's TV show where he basically did a proto-director's commentary on a Coco the Clown short.
Nice.
Okay, now that is awesome. I love that.
Can you imagine modern Disney doing that? Probably not, but regardless. Now, as for the Superman animated shorts themselves, They fell into the public domain years ago and are still relevant and beloved to this day. However, DC Comics really isn't doing anything with that because the Fleischer era Superman only appeared in a handful of comics, one of which was a comic where Clark and Lois go to see a movie and there's the Superman short playing before it. And Clark basically has to excuse himself and try and not hide his identity. As Lois basically laughs, oh, it's a cute cartoon, which, okay, yeah, that was the 50s, I could see why. But what really bothers me is for years and years, they don't do anything with it. Then they do Crisis on Infinite Earths. And they actually bring back the Fleischer Superman universe and they destroy it. Yeah, they actually wipe out the universe of the Fleischer Superman. Of course, it comes back in the end because all of the universes are restored, but still, the fact that you have this iconic, beloved version of Superman and you don't do anything with it, that bothers me so much. Like, DC Comics have done the animated movies for an extremely long time, and I am still shocked they have never, not once, done a movie set in the Fleischer Superman universe. I want to see what Batman looks like. I want to see what Wonder Woman looks like. I want to see Lex Luthor, and if he would wind up being the mad scientist from the first short, the one that goes, "Do you want a study? I'll give you a study. The greatest destruction the world has ever known." As you can tell, I'm a big fan of these shorts, but yeah, DC Comics shows no respect for this, and it really is a shame. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I love when you said DC isn't doing anything with that, because all I could think of, and I'm going to quote another DC property with that, is, do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?
Exactly. Batman and Superman the Animated Series both took inspiration from this, but one person who you really would not expect to love these shorts so much is Miyazaki, because the robots from Castle in the Sky, they were designed to basically be the mechanical monsters from the short, The Mechanical Monsters, with slightly redesigned heads, but the bodies are nearly identical. And he has gone on record as saying these are some of his favorite pieces of animation. And for a guy who really has ranted about how much he hates America for a very long time, the fact that he loves an American icon's animation such as this is kind of funny. These are some of the greatest animated shorts of all time. They really are beautiful. And for me, it feels like we're living in the period after the Roman Empire fell, and we're looking at the Roman concrete, and we're like, how did they make this? Because this short is almost 80 years old, and it still looks as good as the day it was made. It is incredible.
This animation is timeless, 100%.
It is. And the fact it fell into the public domain is a benefit for it because we can actually see it whenever you want. You don't have to buy an expensive DVD case or go on a legal streaming site or whatever. You can actually just watch this in the comfort of your home right here, right now, which I recommend that you do. Watch all the Max Fleischers because they are just so amazing. This is going to lead to the question of the week, which is, what is your favorite Superman adaptation that is not this one? I want to preface that, not this one, because that's the one I would definitely pick, because this is my favorite version of Superman, period. But for my second favorite, that is not this one, I'm actually going to say it is going to be, I'm sorry, it's the Christopher Reeves movies. Like, are they perfect? No. Superman 4 Quest for Peace really is a cheesy movie. You know, it's a shame what happened with that, with the budget being sliced salami slices because Golan Globus. Yeah, it really is silly with the story, too, with Nuclear Man and Lex Luthor. You have my voice. No, you have my voice. The first two Superman movies, Superman and Superman 2. I actually like both the Lester cut and the Donner cut, by the way. They're both good. But both of these movies, these really kickstarted the superhero craze into overdrive, because before that, with superheroes, most people would think of Adam West's Batman or the Hulk TV show or the Wonder Woman TV show. But the fact that these movies, which were so high budget and so highly acclaimed, they came out great because Christopher Reeve, he embodied Superman. He really feels like the perfect live action version of the character. He really did a fantastic job. You have Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, who also was just absolutely amazing. You have the plot line of him wanting to destroy California and that to create basically a seafront property. And of course, we have Otis with his classic Otisburg. It's just a little bitty place. Otisburg. You gave Miss Teschmacher her own place. Such a great, great movie, the original Superman. It really has not aged that poorly, to be honest. It is still, like this, it is a timeless movie. And then we have Superman 2, which brought us the awesomeness that is General Zod, who is just amazing. I'm sorry, Terrence Stamp's General Zod is my favorite Superman villain of all time. He is so, so good.
Yeah, I can easily see why.
Infamously, what happened with that was Richard Donner was taken away because he was taking too long with it, and they got Richard Lester to finish it. And yeah, I think he did a pretty decent job. Is it as seamless as the original cut might have been? No, but I still think it has a lot of good moments in it. It has really, really great moments. It has some really out there visual stuff too for a superhero movie. The part where Superman gives up his powers to stay with Lois, it really is some 2001 A Space Odyssey level stuff. It looks great, and Margot Kidder did a great, great job as Lois Lane too. She was also a legend, but yeah, it really is a creative movie. Then you have Superman 3, which could have been good, but I feel like number 1, they focused too much on the wacky comedy of it. Number 2, no Gene Hackman because he refused to be a part of it after what happened with Richard Donner. So they got Robert Wagner, I think, to play the villain in that. And number 3 is the comedy bits with Richard Pryor, which he was a funny guy and all, but in Superman 3, he really bogs down the movie some, with parts with him like skiing off of the villain's building and stuff like that, pretending to be a general. That all is really, really bad. It does have an excellent, excellent sequence where Superman becomes evil and does really petty things, and I love that. The most evil thing Superman can think to do is tilting the Leaning Tower of Pisa the other way, or blowing out the Olympic torch. But then what makes Superman 3 worth it is the junkyard scene, where Superman and Clark Kent split into two and begin battling each other in a really awesome fight sequence.
Yeah, oh, that sounds amazing, honestly.
And then we have Superman 4 Quest for Peace, which, don't watch. Watch it for Reeve, watch it for Hackman, and watch it for Margot Kidder. But aside from that, the effects are really, really cheap. Like, wow. But yeah, that's going to be my pick. It's going to be the Christopher Reeve Superman movies because they are really well done. At least the first two are. And I still feel like we haven't gotten as good of a live-action Superman since. Superman Returns tried, but it just didn't work. And then we had the Snyderverse Superman, which, less said about that, the better. And even the James Gunn one, I liked it, but I don't know, it felt like it was missing a little something. So, that's going to be my pick for my favorite Superman moment. Matt, what would yours be?
As the animation guy, you'd probably expect me to say Superman the Animated Series, which is really high up there. Probably the second best representation of Superman in animation besides the Fleischer ones. I'm actually going slightly different way, and for a very specific reason. Superman versus the Elite, particularly the animated movie.
Ooh.
Now, while this version of Superman looks kind of weird, I don't know why they went with a stylization that made him look like Jay Leno. It does something with Superman that like no one else does, or has done, I should say, successfully. They show us why Superman has his morals and will not cross these lines with the end of the movie. Spoiler alert for a now over decade-old movie and even longer comic run. Superman at least pretends to go full evil, snaps, and we see how horrific he can be when he is not holding back and is just going full ham. And the voice actor just eats into it and gives a perfect representation of this. It is so visceral and terrifying the first time you see it, just how insane all the shit Superman can do when he actually does not give a damn anymore. And it is so fun to watch this. And for the final lesson of the movie to be, this is why Superman is good and does not kill people. Yeah, no shit. Really cool to see. Thank you. We actually did need this to really instill into people why this is a thing with him.
Oh, easily. Like I say, the DC animated movies as a whole were really all well done for the most part. aside from the one we talked about last week, but that's neither here nor there. So, great choice right there. Let's see, Shark, what would your pick be?
Well, as the guy who constantly talks about video games in this kind of answers of the week, well, other choice was Superman for Nintendo 64!
Oh dear God.
The rings, man,
Oh.
the rings.
Nah, just kidding. Well, if Matt is not going to answer with Superman animated series, then I will be the one answering with Superman the animated series because, yeah, to say this is one of Superman's most iconic series will be an understatement. It's probably the base of a lot of Supermans that will appear in television and cartoons. A lot of people are probably very, very familiar with this vision with Superman, which, yeah, it's a really awesome cartoon. Like, of course, the animation is not on like Fleischer level, but still, action scenes are great. The characters are great. Episodes are this big adventure and all of that. It can have funny moments, like the episode with the Mr. Musiklik or whatever you pronounce his way. Some of the interactions he has with his mother as well can be both funny and heartwarming and all of that. But still, just because it was a show for families, it didn't mean it didn't get dark. Because yeah, some of the villains, also like Lex Luthor is one of them, but some of the villains will get very dark moments. Like Darkseid will alright kill some characters, and heck, even the show ends on a quite bleak note. And hey, spoilers for a 20-year-old something show, but still, like, the final arc is about like Darkseid brainwashing Superman and having him like attack the Earth and innocent people, and even after Superman clears his name, brings himself, well, the people is not forgiving of him. He still gets shown, and the show does end with this bleak note that Superman is going to have to gain his trust. And even though he was able to beat Darkseid on a duel, the people in Darkseid planet still sees him as an emperor and all of that. So it is a bleak reminder that being a superhero isn't really easy, but Superman still fights, Superman still does what's right. So in a way, anything like that kind of works for him. But overall, the whole show is like this, and it is a great way to show what kind of character Superman is.
Point out just one thing. You brought him up, but I just want to bring this up. Mr. Mixelplitz, that's how I think you pronounce it. I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I've seen that show too, but...
I know how to pronounce it, actually. Mr. Mixie's Pitlick, or Mixie's Piddlelick.
He is voiced by none other than Gilbert Gottfried, which that alone makes it so worth it, because he really, really does such a fantastic job as him. And that episode as a whole is a really, really funny one, because it does call back to just how good of a comedian Gilbert is, and Superman's reaction to it is so funny. How he basically tricks him into going back in the first time they meet is so funny.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Like the scene where he builds a giant mech robot and he's like, "I'll be back for dinner, lady," and then he leaves, and he's immediately back in his home.
Fun show, and it does also lead into the Justice League animated series, which that too was absolutely awesome. But that's going to be a great choice right there. So let's see, Stryker, what would your pick be?
I'm actually the same with Shark, actually. I'm going with Superman the Animated Series. It was the only thing that I really watched growing up that had to do with superhero anything. I mean, other than Batman, of course, or any Marvel show. Really had more of a connection to DC than Marvel growing up, other than Spider-Man, of course.
Yeah, it's a great show. It is a great show.
Hell yeah, it is.
And let's see, Angron, what would your pick be?
This is going to be a little bit of an unconventional pick, but yeah, I'm definitely going to have to go for Crypto on this one. Like, it's one thing making a separate full adaptation of a Superman for sidekick like Steel, but it's another thing having it be good and memorable. And Crypto to me feels like that. It's basically Superman but doggo, but in the best way possible. Like, not only do they keep to its core values, and not only is this set in the Burn It verse, the people they got for this, no surprise, it's the Ocean dub, and they did amazing work here. Nicole Oliver, Kelly Sheridan as Mammoth Mutt, heck yes, Kathleen Barr, Ty Olson, Samuel Vincent, and much more ultimately make this great. And it all spans on the lore a little bit of Superdog. And with Mammoth Mutt, the Dog Star Patrol, Ignatius Iguana, like, they don't just make them like villains of the week. They act more times than not. Some of these characters, some of these mainstays that we've come to know and love from said show actually get some amazing development. Like, there's this whole episode about Hanukkah, which is fitting given Superman's origins. And Ignatius not only understands that, but that key by the end of the episode. And it's amazing. Streaky's origin in this is pretty amazing. Just an ordinary house cat that gets Superman's DNA, and yet they do so much with that as well. And also some of the villains like Mechanicat, Isis, Catwoman's cat, like so much love was put into this. And unconventional, but I'm absolutely going to pick this.
That is such a fun show. We've already talked about Crypto on the podcast. If you haven't seen it, we'll link to it in the description. But seriously, that is such a great show. And again, for little kids, it's a great introduction to the DC universe as a whole because, as you said, the Superman that appears first episode is the same Superman from Superman the Animated Series, so that is canon to this in a really fun way. Again, it's a shame that DC has not done anything with this version of Crypto, but as you mentioned earlier, they didn't do anything with Fleischer's Superman either, which really is a shame because, again, it's a fun show, and not just because Mehmet Mutt is a great character, because she is.
Also, Brainy Barker. Also, interesting that you say that because there is a film that does give nod to Crypto. Just unfortunately, he doesn't speak in that one. And it's Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2.
Now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale, where we are going to rank none other than the Arctic Giant for our 150th episode. So, going first, I would really be tempted to give it a perfect score. I really would. The way it's animated is so great and all. I love it. Just the way it looks is a 10 out of 10. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say I am going to give it a 9, which feels like sacrilege because I gave the unkindness that last episode. But the reason I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 is because, as we like to mention a lot, it is really just giant monster. But with that being said, it is an amazing giant monster. Like, this easily was the inspiration for Godzilla in a lot more ways than one. Like we mentioned in the episode, you really feel the heft and the size of it, but I feel like if we got just a little bit of character for it, for example, why was it rampaging? Was it because it was scared and confused or something? We don't really know. The monster just wakes up, starts roaring, and just starts destroying things. Kind of a shame, but at the same time, you can easily see why, considering the constraints the Fleischers had on this. But with that being said, it is a great character and design. So that's why I'm giving it a 9.
I'm kind of going to go a little lower, 8 out of 10. Like, the fact that it's the inspiration for Godzilla and the fact that it's such a beautiful looking creature as well definitely gets it high points. But like you said, giant monster. So, I mean, outside of maybe it just wandering around, smashing into stuff, and just a little bit aimless because it woke up from the ice, a little bit not really firing on all cylinders, that's honestly about it when it comes to characterization. Like, it's not bad, and I definitely understand the appeal for it. Like, I watched a few of the Fleischer Superman cartoons, so I can definitely understand the appeal. Sadly, the creature is only going to get an 8 from me.
Let's see, Matt, what would you give it?
Unfortunately, I'm going even lower, and I think that this is largely because of how I do the ratings. You know, the whole 5 for design, 5 for character thing. I'm actually bumping it up to a 7 based purely on design because the insane amount of detail that Fleischer puts into this and the fluidity of the motion and how well the character is made to just become alive in the short. It also helps that this is, let's be honest here, this is the precursor for Godzilla. If Toho just flat out said, oh, hey, we saw this short, it kind of helped inspire us, no one would go, oh yeah, we totally can't see that. Yeah, no, this is absolutely it. So that does help. The issue is, and again, this is purely my rating system. There's no character here. There's no personality. There's no nothing. I get it. That's why you had this kind of creature like this. It's supposed to just be our prototypical giant monster, but that's it, unfortunately. So because of my weird rating system, it's a bit lower.
Not going to get that from like a 1940s animated short, but regardless. Let's see, Shark, what would you give the Arctic Giant?
Well, let's get the downside over the way. It's the very same thing all of you have said, giant monster. With that said, maybe I can be too harsh in this situation because Let's be honest, this was from an era where giant monsters were just giant monsters. Like, oh, it will take a while before someone said, like, oh, what if the giant monster had feelings? What if the giant monster could talk? For its time, I can understand why they just went this direction. Again, the story is all about Superman stopping a monster, so a monster itself you're gonna get with character. But man, if I could just rate this thing for animation and design alone, it will be a perfect 10 because yeah, Fleischer Studios knew what to do with this kind of animation, this kind of character. It moves so well, it looks so good. Like I said, moving slowly and fluid really works because you can feel the force and the heaviness of this thing. The creative way Superman fixes the problems it causes is also so great. When it comes to anything but character, it will be a 10 out of 10, but because I have to consider a character as well, which it is Giant Monster, but it is kind of justified Giant Monster, I think I'm gonna go with an 8 out of 10.
Let's see, Stryker, what would yours be?
Honestly, it's much like what everyone else is saying. 7 out of 10. I mostly just enjoyed the design and animation. There really wasn't much else remarkable about this.
So that's going to be it for this week and for our 150th episode, which, ironically enough, for such a big milestone, is actually one of the shorter ones we've done.
Funny.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, or if you want to hear us gush about the Fleischers even more, you can feel free to email us at fiorydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us at Twitter at twitter.com/FieryDiscourse. Visit us at Blue Sky Fiery Discourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel, subscribe to the playlist, like and hit the bell icon, leave a comment. Any and all comments are appreciated. Also, one of our co-hosts, Lucky Evie, is looking to move to a group home in the UK. That will also be in the description. Any and all help for that will be appreciated. Next week, we're going to be talking about the 1997 webcomic Boston and Sean. And this is the first episode we are actually going to have a special guest. We are going to have Jay Brandstetter from the Internet History Podcast, I'm From the Internet. He's going to be with us, and he's going to be talking about this podcast, which is from early internet, and has more than a few scaly females in it. And it'll be very interesting to talk about that.
Nice.
But that's going to be it for this week. And until then, thank you all so much for watching, and take care.
Laters.
Later.
Peace out.
Adios. See you all next week.